Welcome to The Practical Intuitive, where each Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern, where host Robin Fritz explores mind, body, and spirit for the real world. Because we are all intuitives and healers, and we must all learn to love ourselves and live that love every day. Robin is a trained and certified intuitive and spiritual consultant and hypnotherapist with an international practice based in Seattle, Washington. As the Practical Intuitive, she covers personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice. It's all here. Readings, healings, and funny, warm, thought-provoking conversations. It's Robin Fritz, the Practical Intuitive, helping you mastermind body and spirit for the real world. No ifs, ands, buts, or BS ever.
Welcome to the Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robin Fritz, and we're live in Seattle, Washington, and it's June 4th, 2018, which marks 1 year with OMTimes. And what a wonderful year it's been for me. And I am just thrilled to be part of the OMTimes family. So today we are continuing the discussion about animals and reincarnation. Why? Because I can talk a lot about that subject because it's fascinating and because a lot of people are waking up to the reality that our animals, just like everything out there, our animals have souls, they have consciousness, they have jobs to do, they have a responsibility to do those jobs and free choice about whether they're doing it, just like we do. And a lot of us are waking up to a process I call learning up, which is evolving our relationships with animals. We have moved from the ancient necessity of just surviving together to what I call heart and soul growth. And I know many people are open to that these days. Many people are looking at their animals as family members. They're treating them as such. They're living with us in our homes. And, you know, the world is out there looking for aliens, looking for alien life. And if you want to find life as different as yours and as conscious and as involved with us as ever, just look at your animals. It's there. It's right there, alive and welcoming you to join with them in creating families where heart and soul growth are the thing that we're up to regardless. So here's the thing, our animals aren't with us as long as they could be, as long as we would like. So when we choose to bring animals into the family, we know that it is most likely that we will also be saying goodbye to them at some point. So we're going to talk about animals, reincarnation, cloning, and all of those kinds of things, including the concept my spiritual team told me and taught me and convinced me, I guess, to try, called magnetizing. But first, again, I want to welcome you to my show, and I want to let you know that I am always welcoming calls to share your opinion, to ask a question for quick intuitive insight into an issue you are looking at. And for that, you may call 202-570-7057. Or if you're shy, please email me at my website, robinfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. And I promise you, I will cover your question, your concern, or your request for a reading on an upcoming show. You're also welcome to join me at Facebook Live on Monday mornings at OMTimes page Humanity Healing, where we talk about all kinds of awesome things. So again, before we get started, I'd like to introduce you once more to my crystal Fallon. He's a citrine Lemurian quartz. No, I don't name anybody in my family's animals or crystals. That's his name. You will experience his energy or his beingness, so to speak, during the show in the way that your intuition works most strongly. So you may see pictures, hear him chat with you, feel his energy, or just know that you are connected with him in this hour. It is a tremendous opportunity for you to get this healing energy from this amazing ancient power crystal. So, as we connect in this hour, take your attention to the top of your head, and just as you breathe down your body from head to toe and back up again, allow the blocks and everything that got in your way today, even the good stuff, to clear away so that you have given this hour to yourself to share with the rest of the community, to learn new things, to think about whether what I talk about makes sense to you or works for you. It's all here for you. So take your attention to the top of your head. We're connecting mind, body, and spirit together. And as you breathe down, feel those blocks clear and your body feel reinvigorated. Breathing down from the top of your head, down your face, your shoulders, your chest, your hips, your knees, and your feet. Top of your head to the bottom of your feet. And as we move back up from your feet, you can imagine welcoming that healing energy into your body, or at least noticing it as Fallon moves up outside your body, moving up from your feet past your knees, your hips, your chest, your shoulders, your face, and the top of your head. You may notice your crown chakra being wide open in this hour. That's great. We'll close it down at the end of the hour. And that means your intuition is wide open and you're experiencing it. So today I want to talk about continuing the conversation of animals and reincarnation. I want to talk about what happens in reincarnation, what can happen, and how we find them again. So in the last show, May 21st, when actually I think it was before that. Anyway, in May, I talked about this show, concept of reincarnation, and I talked about my cat, Karis, coming back because we were just going into Memorial Day weekend, and it is now a year since Karis has been part of our family. And I explained how my cat, Grace the cat, died in September of 2016. A couple months later, I decided I wanted a cat, but I decided on a purebred. I picked Russian Blue. I went to meet a local breeder the end of November, fell in love with the breed, and tried to get on their list for a cat. But I thought it wasn't working, so I ended up going all over the country trying to find a breeder, and every breeder that I made a deal with, the deal fell through for one reason or another, until May 1st, when I got an email from the local breeder saying, well, we had 3 kittens on February 10th, and if you want one, this one is yours. And when I was like dumbfounded and sat down to look at the picture they sent me, I realized, oh my gosh, it's Grace the cat, and she's back. So here's the process of that. She had told me she was not coming back. She was annoyed when I decided I wanted a boy cat. Why do you want a boy cat? She kept saying she wasn't coming back, and she changed her mind. And I wasn't listening as well, or maybe they weren't speaking up loudly enough. Because as my dad later told me, and my dad has been dead since 1994. I work with him. He runs what I call a way station for dead things on the other side. He helps me and my clients talk with their dead human or animal. And he's very familiar with my deceased animals. He's taken all of them since they started dying in 2012. He'd been trying to get my attention, and I had just been focused on getting a cat somewhere else. And Grace came back rather quickly. I saw the breeder at the end of November, decided that's what I wanted, that's who I wanted to buy from, and she popped right back into a body in December and was born on February 10th. So that's how quickly our animals can reincarnate with us. But she didn't tell me that was happening. But another one of my animals did, and that's Ollie, or Oliver, my Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, who was born in July 28th, 2015. And the reincarnation of my Cavalier Alki, who died on November 17th, 2014. So That was a devastating experience. I was surprised that I wanted a dog again. At the time, it was just me and Grace the cat in the house. This was the second of my Cavaliers I'd lost over 2 years. And gosh, I just really wanted another dog in my life. And I was just getting ready to adopt a retired show dog from a breeder that I knew. Um, Very simple process. Um, but I was, curious about it because by then I had become aware that all of my animals had reincarnated with me, even when I didn't know they had reincarnated. My English Cocker Spaniel, Maggie, years and years ago. I mean, I was in a different part of the country, brand new in a different part of the country, and I go and I look at this dog and I didn't want it. They wanted me to take her, and the next thing I knew, she was coming home with me because she came flying across the room and climbed up into my arms and flung her arms around my neck and hung on for dear life. And I lived my entire life with her, or her entire life with me, without realizing that she was a reincarnation, which is pretty typical for us. We don't really need to know always that our animals have reincarnated with us, but now that we know it's possible and that it happens a lot, we're curious, the human thing. We're curious and we want to know. So I was just getting ready to adopt a female Cavalier, an older dog, and I was kind of curious about that because I knew this was not a soul I had lived with before, and unlike most of us, I wasn't used to a new soul. So I was like, how's that going to be? Like, how are you going to live with a complete stranger? You know, Not a thought most of us have because, hello, we bring a new animal into the family. They are strangers at first. Um, but somewhere in that winter of 2015, all of a sudden, this little puppy, and I could clearly see it a puppy, a brown and white Cavalier, and popped into my head and grinning at me said, "Hi, my name is Oliver." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting a puppy." And that was that until I realized, well, where am I going to get him from? And a friend of mine runs a Cavalier database. She checks their health. She knows where they're healthy at. And we found a breeder back east who breeds extremely healthy dogs, who's very successful on the show circuit, showing dogs. Just a very delightful place. Looking at them energetically, I could see what a wonderful, spiritually uplifting, good, solid, healthy energy that they provide for their dogs, and what a wonderful place for a male Cavalier King Charles Spaniel to come from, because the boys in this breed are very dependent on their one person. They're very, very much a lap dog. There is a breed that is very sensitive. They really like to be loved and nourished, and this was a wonderful environment for it. But I didn't know the guy, and he didn't know me, and I admit I'm the person who walks around and tries to use my intuition, and I thought, well, this is going to be an interesting conversation. So I called him up and we had a conversation, and I said, well, and we agreed. He agreed that he would sell me a dog, and he agreed to my terms, which is no neutering. And that's a whole other subject we're going to talk about in an upcoming show, how we take care of our animals today, including the whole spay neuter thing. And then after we agreed on it, and I'd given him some money, and I was telling him, well, I'm sending a soul to you to be born. And I know it sounds strange even to me, and I was doing it. But the thing of it is, a lot of times when we're doing whatever it is we're doing in the world, and particularly in my world as an intuitive and spiritual consultant, I make it up as I go. I mean, there were no guidelines on how to help your reincarnated loved ones go back into a body. I just made it up as I went. My dad can see energy lines between the living and the dead. So I picked out the breeder and I said, okay, Dad, Oliver's going there, help him along, please. Whatever you're doing, just do it. And the breeder, of course, was like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And I'm going like, "I'm sending a soul to you to be born, and I will know who it is if you send me a puppy picture and I see his eyes, because I can see the soul in the eyes." Now, if you're looking for a reincarnated loved one, how do you find them? Well, for me, I can look in their eyes. I can look at in the eyes of portraits going back however many years. I can see that soul having all different kinds of experiences. So I can see that soul in the eyes. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to see the eyes. But of course, I'm human, so I doubt a lot. And I knew this guy, checked me out, and he knew people that knew me, and they're going, "Yeah, she's different, but she's sane. That's fine. She's balanced. She's grounded. She's fine. She's just very different." And so that came time. Oliver was born on July 28th, and I told the breeder he's going to be really mismarked, which means his coloring is going to be off. He's going to have blotches on his face and things. The things that Ollie and I decided in talking back and forth so that he wouldn't get mistaken as a show dog was that he'd be so mismarked that he just wouldn't be a show dog, right? So no problem. Well, several of us had been talking with Ollie during this period of gestation, and along about the time he was, I guess, actually just being conceived, all of a sudden I realized not only was this the soul that I knew that had come back to me many times in my dogs, but he was the actual reincarnation of Alki coming back with his memories intact. And I was like stunned. I was like, "Dad, what are you thinking of?" Because his last year of his life had been traumatized. And I didn't want him to experience that trauma again. And I didn't know what to think. Like, why are you coming back? And we're almost ready for a break. And I'll tell you what happened was that when I was looking at the other dog, the female dog, I said, "This is going to be the last dog that I ever get." And my dad said to me, he said, "Robin," he said, "you said this was going to be your last dog." And Alki heard that and said, "That's it, I'm out of here." And that, people, is how quickly and easily your animals can choose to come back to you. So after the break, I'll talk about magnetizing your animals.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Shopping for yourself or loved ones? Check out the best rock shop around, Earthlight Rocks and Gems in Kirkland, Washington. Whether you're looking for metaphysical support or just love nature's art, Earthlight has it all. Raw rocks, crystals, tumbled stones of all kinds, carvings, cabs, fossils, tumblers, rare minerals in all price ranges, and books. They also have jewelry, including custom pieces and beads to make your own. Open 7 days a week, the Earthlight store has been around since 1988 and is run by Kim and Todd Valines. Find them online at earthlightgems.com, at Etsy at earthlightgems.etsy.com, or on Facebook at Earthlight Rocks and Gems. Have a question? Email Kim at the store, earthlightgems.com. And just for OMTimes listeners, receive 10% off orders over $50 at their Etsy account with coupon code EarthlightGems. That's earthlightgems.etsy.com or the store at earthlightgems.com.
I'm Fidel Mshombo. I was born in a city called the Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America, and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robin Fritz, and we're talking about animals and reincarnation and magnetizing the animals you know are coming back to you. So here's the thing. Several of us had been talking with Ollie during the period that he was gestating. I had discovered that he was my other dog reincarnating with his memories intact. That he had deliberately come back when I said that he was going to be my last dog. He was going to be my last dog, period, that he was coming. And then all of a sudden we couldn't hear him anymore. And I call it frequency silence. It's like we're on that wavelength where we were talking with him and boom, there's nothing, none of us, my friends and I who worked together, we couldn't hear him talk to us. Now, up until that point, we'd say, have you been born yet? How you doing? And he'd keep saying, I'm coming. And boom, silence. So my guess was that he had been born. He was busy getting used to his body, and that's why I couldn't hear him. So I emailed the breeder, said, wow, I can't hear Oliver anymore. And by this time, the guy was getting used to me. He knew the dog's name. He knew what I was expecting. He also told me he never sends puppy pictures, of a litter of puppies, because he doesn't want people to pick a puppy he's not going to sell. So all this time I'd been like, oh my God, how am I going to find my dog if he's not going to maybe send me a picture of all the dogs that he has? But I said, well, I don't hear Oliver anymore. Have you had a litter of puppies in the last week? Boom, back comes a picture of a litter of puppies. 8 of them, I think, all piled on top of each other, and my eye went straight to one. You couldn't tell it was male or female, and you couldn't see its eyes because, hello, their eyes are still closed at that age. But my eye kept going back to that particular dog over the coming weeks. And here's the thing. We knew the guy was a breeder, so Ollie and I decided, well, we'll just mess up your coat and make it all kinds of spots like a Dalmatian and you'll be fine. And it was. All those dogs were spotted. What Ollie and I didn't know was that after a couple of weeks, all those spots go away and they become pretty much a solid coat. And that's what happened. So I really only had a few weeks to recognize the body, the picture of the body that he put in my head. And, but I had told the breeder he would be mismarked. And so sometime late summer, early fall, he sends me a picture. He says, well, Robin, you were right all along. Here's your puppy. And he sent me a picture of this cute little guy, and he had a big splotch on his face. And I ended up calling him Mr. Blotchy. And I looked at him and I went, well, there's something wrong here about this picture. And I sent it to a friend who knows puppy pictures. She goes, Robin, you're right, Robin, that's not the puppy you've been looking at. And I was like, okay, so that's confirmed. So I emailed him back and I said, no, that's not my dog. And I pointed to the dog that was, circled it in the picture and sent it back. Oh, this is why the guy doesn't send pictures of his puppy, of his litters, because the response was, that's my first pick for a show dog and you cannot have him. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a risk we took. And sending Ollie to be born to um, a breeder who is really successful in the show ring, really breeding healthy dogs, doing well by them. That was a risk I took. And I thought, okay, man, now we're in for it. What am I going to do now? And I don't show dogs. I have really no interest in showing dogs. But over the coming weeks, we talked back and forth, and I said, you want to show him? Fine. We can make that happen. We can make anything happen. Whatever it takes for you to part with this dog is what I'll do. And just, there wasn't much movement on that. And I couldn't blame him. I mean, when you're looking for the diamond in the rough and you've got one in your hand, why would you give it to somebody you don't know who's not going to do what you want, which is breed and show and breed, especially on that level. But so I was really upset about it, and Ollie started talking to us, and he said, oh, we've had harder times finding each other in previous lifetimes. And, that's kind of cool, because the thing is, we're human, and we're so involved with being human. It's not necessarily an asset being human, because we are always second guessing ourselves, and we're always doubting, and we don't really remember our previous lives or our experiences, not like our animals do and other beings that, aren't human. It's like a handicap that comes with being human, is the way I look at it. So that wasn't really very much comfort. And then I was talking with my dad, and he goes, Robin, actually he says Bobby. He's the only person who's ever been allowed to call me Bobby. He says, Bobby, you just got to believe. You just got to believe. And I'm like, you're a dead guy. It's easy for you to believe you're a dead guy. I'm not dead yet. It is not that easy for me to believe this is going to happen. And that's when my spiritual team stepped in and said, you need to magnetize him. And I'm like, okay, what the heck is magnetizing? Oh, sometimes you just don't want to hear the lecture. You just want the thing to happen, right? So they told me what magnetizing was. So there's a spot here. I live on Puget Sound in Seattle. Ocean, salt water, the opportunity to see whales and sea lions and sea life, the most, I love the ocean because it's alive in a way that oceans or rivers and lakes aren't, just because of that salt water and what lives in saltwater factor. That's just my mindset. So Alki, my previous dog, and I, the dog who'd reincarnated as Oliver, we'd go to a spot down on the beach in this concrete ramp that people could launch boats at, or I don't know what they did there, because I've never seen that happen there. But I'd throw sticks for him, and he'd fetch sticks. So it was a stick fetching zone. It was like our favorite time together for us to throw sticks, and he was so proud of himself to fetch the stick. And so they said, go to the place where you had fun and magnetize him. So I was to sit at the beach and hold him in my arms. Imagine that I'm holding Oliver in my arms and making it real. The intention, I guess, the thought of it, the mindset of we are attached, we are connected, we will come together, and to believe that I was holding him in my arms. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm impatient, and I want big fancy things to happen, rainbows and unicorns and all of that kind of stuff. And I want it big, no doubt about it experiences. And sitting there magnetizing an invisible dog just didn't convince me. But it should have, or it did later, because as I was sitting there one day doing my duty as magnetizing this dog and holding him and thinking, oh, this is Oliver, he's coming, I'm holding him, I know the breeder's gonna, just give him to me. All of a sudden, this dog pops in, and I could see it intuitively. He's right in front of me, and I immediately recognized him. It's the puppy that the breeder wanted me to take, the dog that I called Mr. Blotchy. And he's looking at me, and oh my God, he was so sad. And I was like, oh gosh, my feelings were hurt just looking at him, feeling bad for him. And he looked at me and he goes, why don't you want me? And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. That's enough to just make you cry your eyes out, right? And I said, oh, come on, little guy. I said, I'm so sorry. It's not that I don't want you. It's that I want my soul match. I want the puppy who came to be with me, and that's not you. You need to be calling for your soul match. You need to find your soul match. You need to find the person you came here to be with. Now, I want you to listen very closely to this because I learned something in the next few minutes. This puppy looked at me very solemnly and he got this really puzzled look on his face. And he said, "Don't you have the little girl?" And I realized, and he popped this picture in my head, and I saw this little blonde girl. She was about 8 or 9 years old, and I saw her with her parents. She was an only child. She had something going on physically. I don't know if it was a physical issue or whatever it was, whether she was extremely shy or something. But this little dog was coming to help her bring out her essential personhood. And she wasn't my little girl. And I looked at the Mr. Blotchy and I said, "No, there are no little girls here." I said, "You need to really work on calling her to you." And he went away. And I was just like, "Oh my God, this whole magnetizing thing works." I mean, this little guy popped in when I was magnetizing Ollie and it's like, "Why don't you want me? You want this other guy. You want one of my brothers. You don't want me." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't want you, but not because of who you are, not because you're not wonderful, but because you're not mine and I'm not yours." So the long and short of that story was that the breeder just finally, and they told me the night when I flew back east to bring Ollie home, they said, "We have no idea what you're talking about. We don't understand this whole soul business, this whole, your dog coming back in another body. We don't understand it, but we're also not getting in your way. There's something going on between you and this dog. We can see that. He's yours. Go away." But they also brought Mr. Blotchy out. He was still there. I mean, these puppies were all 11 weeks old. They were just beginning to go to their homes. And I asked him, I tried to tell the breeder about the little girl. "Do you have a client? Do you have potential clients that have a little girl? She's about 8 or 9, long blonde hair." And of course, he looked at me like I was somebody. He was pretty sure I was already crazy, and maybe I was even crazier now. He just looked at me. And I was like, "Oh gosh," but I had to try, right? And he was like, "No, that didn't ring a bell with him." So to this day, I don't know who Mr. Blotchy ended up with. I don't know if he found his little girl, but here's the lesson for us in that. In sharing my personal stories, my failings, and my occasional triumphs, um, the idea of magnetizing is real, but it's a little bit more complicated than that because, in the case of Mr. Blotchy, how are we going to know not just who our match is, but who their match is? And we're not always thinking of that. I was focused on Oliver. I knew he was coming back to be with me. That had been very clear. Um, it just, wow, but Mr. Blotchy was looking for his little girl. And, sometimes they come back to be with specific people just like we do, soul families. Soul families don't depend on, the species or the being that they come in. They're souls, and it's the body that you choose to do your work in. And when Oliver was talking to me about coming back, I said, like, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, well, the first thing he said is very funny. He said, "Well, if I came back as a human," he said, "you'd be dead before I got old enough to do my work." And I'm like, "What? You're going to be 50 at human years before you get to do the work you're doing next? Because I'm not that old, dog." But he said, "I need to do my job as a dog. I need to do it in a dog body, and I need to do it with you. And we weren't done with each other yet. We have work to do together yet. And so I'm coming back." And so, yeah, he was very clear about that. I was just having to find him, and the whole process I created to find him actually worked. But before you get all excited about how easy it is to find your reincarnated loved ones, know that this particular soul that comes back to me that I spend lifetimes with is extremely advanced, extremely crafty, and I'm sure everything that I came up with was something that we'd figured out in a previous lifetime, and he just facilitated. Not to say that we're not, as humans, basically intelligent, but to say that he, I know this soul. I've seen it in many other bodies. It's the most advanced soul I know, and it can do pretty much anything it wants, and it does. So there you go. But when you're talking about magnetizing these souls, and thinking of Mr. Blotchy, what is it that we're doing in our lives when we're adopting animals into our families, and what are they doing in their lives, and why are they coming to be with us? So when you're out there, if you're thinking one of your loved ones is reincarnating, and it's very possible, it's happening a lot, it always did. If you're talking to your animals, like Ollie said, hey, we've had harder times finding each other in previous lifetimes. It's going to be fine. I'm like, okay. Wow, I don't remember that. But if you do, I'll believe you. And so here's the thing. So you may not necessarily be looking for a reincarnated loved one, but you may be looking for an animal to bring into your life. You may have picked a specific breed, or you may want to work with a specific shelter or adoption group. And I don't use the word rescue anymore in terms of that, because I think it has negative implications, implications in heavy weight to that word that brings us down as well as our animals. So you're adopting. It's really what you're adopting. So you're adopting wherever you're adopting the animal from. Spend some time asking it what it came here to do and who it came here to be with, and will it be interested in being a match with you? Because we don't always find those that we specifically came back for, but that doesn't mean there are a lot of other matches that don't work for that can and do work for us. So we are all intuitive and healers. That's the purpose of my work in the world, is to help everyone understand that and help them develop their intuitive abilities. So when you're going, wherever you're going to look for an animal, ask it, are you the animal that's here to be with me? Am I here to be with you? Are we going to create a family together? What do you think about that? Does it serve your soul purpose to be with me? And see what kind of answers you get. And I'll talk more about that after the break. If you'd like to call in, have a question, 202-570-7057.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from New Thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14,
41, 31, 13.
We took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted. He realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. We're talking about animals reincarnation and magnetizing the animals coming back to you, or the animal that you want to adopt. So again, if you're looking for an animal that you think is reincarnated, or you're just looking for an animal to bring into your home and you don't care about the reincarnation bit, practice this idea of magnetizing. Decide what you want. Cat, dog, what species, what sex, whatever, where you're going to get it from. And imagine holding that dog or cat in your arms. Imagine the personality, the breed, the color, the sex, whatever it is you've decided on. And imagine that you're holding in your arms the animal who has chosen to come to be with you, or who would like to be with you after you introduce yourself to it, and that you want to be with you. Because honestly, there are many animals that could choose to be with you, and it's not just one. So imagine that you're holding them and making that reality of connection real. And keep holding on to that idea, and then go visit wherever it is that you're visiting and see what happens. You just might get lucky. I've had more than one breeder tell me people came in, it was time to choose their cat or their dog, and the dog or cat just walked right up to that person, sat down in their arms, and they jumped in their lap, and that was it. That's kind of what happened with Maggie years and years ago, my English Cocker Spaniel. I wanted a different one. The breeders wanted me to take her. I had an active lifestyle. She was active, the ringleader for mischief. And I finally agreed to take her. She was 20 feet across the room when I stood up to leave, and she whirled around and she looked at me, and I didn't know about animal communication. All I knew was that I heard this voice go, "What, you're leaving without me?" And she took off running, ran the length of the room, literally climbed up my body, wrapped her front legs around my neck, and would not let go. And that point, the breeder said, "Okay, even if you hadn't agreed to take her, we'd insist because she's chosen you." So if that happens to you, wherever you are out looking for an animal, know that you've magnetized each other, and that they're smarter than we are and can see it more easily than we do. Same thing happened that night at the breeder's house back east, and I sat on the floor and I had those two dogs around me, Ollie and Mr. Blotchy, and I still wanted proof. I still wanted, I'm human. I just wanted to know. And I looked at Ollie and I said, "Look, I know that's you in there, but can you just give me a sign? Can you just show me that it's you?" And he looked at me like, "Oh my God, really? What does it take?" And he jumped in my lap and he crawled up my torso just like Maggie had done all those years ago. And he wrapped his front arms around my neck and held on, gave me this big hug, pulled back, kissed me on the lips, hugged me again, pulled back, looked at me and said, "Okay, settled. I'm going to go play now." And that's how Ollie came home again. And that's, kind of how it can happen for you too and your beloved. So how do you know though? How do you know? Well, you can try the magnetizing thing. For me, I look in their eyes, and I have a little ebook out. You can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can find it at my website, robinfritz.com. It's called Finding Oliver, How and Why Our Animals Reincarnate with Us. And it tells that and a number of other stories on, it's just a chapter out of my upcoming book on what happens when we die. But there's so many ways that they find their way back to us. But the cover of that book will show you, we very carefully picked both dogs, Alki and Ollie, so that they were looking straight at the camera shots of both of them. And you can see if you're a person whose intuition runs towards knowing, you look in those eyes and you will see that soul looking back at you. And maybe that's the way it is when you're wherever you are looking for your next animal. So trust how your intuition works, and and go from there. But there are signs too to know that that's not your reincarnated animal. So people call me up and they go, well, I have this dog and it acts just like my previous dog. So of course it must be the reincarnation. Well, no. Well, all my dogs have been the same soul and my 2 cats have been the same soul, just a different soul. Their personalities are all different. Even Alki coming back as Ollie, specifically reincarnating from a previous lifetime. Yes, he had memories. He demonstrated that while he was here, going gaga over people he was best friends with before, knowing where things were in the house, all of those kinds of things, including that night where he, wrapped his arms around my neck and kissed me. Yeah. But his behavior and his personality is different. And when you think about it, why would you pick the same personality? I mean, well, I keep hoping my personality improves over many lifetimes, but I don't know. I've had a few conversations with Michael Archangel where he sort of says, now you haven't really improved. So whatever, I'm still the, cranky, overly self-reliant person that I've been for lifetimes. But, this dog is different than my other dogs. He has the same memories. He's growing. He has a job, a huge job that he's chosen to do. And whenever I get like, oh my God, why am I so frustrated with him? I think, well, he also needs to be pretty self-reliant for the work that he's chosen to do. So we're working that out. And here's a word of caution. When you're supporting the soul growth of another soul, like you're doing when you're bringing back your reincarnated loved ones into your family, or even if you're not, and you're bringing another soul into your family, you're supporting their soul growth. Just don't forget, like I did, that you're also signing up for some of your own, and you may not necessarily like it. I was like not too thrilled to find out I had personality defects that needed to be improved, and I'm working on them. And Ollie and Karis, my Russian blue cat, are very patient with me, and I was just saying to them earlier today, you guys, you really picked a tough one to live with. So congratulations on furthering your soul growth by living with me. So don't look for the same behavior in your animals. And that's another reason why I tell people that cloning doesn't work. You may spend $100,000 to clone your dog or your cat. I guess they do more cats than dogs. But, you're looking for that same animal to come back. And I'm here to tell you they never do. The soul comes back. But that exact same personality does not. I have never seen the exact same personality come back. As many animals as I've talked with for other people, including my own, because hello, they're here. We choose bodies to grow our souls, right? Why would we have the same personality? Unless, of course, you're like me and you need to improve it. But even then, I think I'm different than I was in previous lifetimes, and I know that because I've seen some of my previous lifetimes. But still, the exact same personality. I mean, first of all, even if you did have the exact same personality, it's still going to be altered by the things that happened to your body in that lifetime. That's why we're experiencing life in bodies, because we have these different experiences, and each of those gives us an opportunity to grow our soul or set it back a step or two. So don't look for the same behavior, and don't bother to clone, because you may get the genetic duplication, but you're not going to get the personality. And the personality and the soul, that's what you loved in the first place, right? So that's not going to happen again. But you do have the opportunity to love another one just as much. And that's a good thing too. The other thing is, if you're like me and you like a specific breed, then you can ask them, oh, I'm coming back to you. Oh, well, would you like to come back as this? I want a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, or I want a Russian Blue Cat. That's what I want. And that's what they came back as, to humor me, or, maybe they put the idea in my head that that's what I wanted. Either way, you can ask them, to come back as a specific breed or species and see what happens. A lot of times I facilitate what I call happiness talks with people, and that show is June 25th, where I'm going to talk about dying, loss, euthanasia, and the happiness talk that I facilitate for people and their animals who are dying. Sometimes they have ideas before they die about what they want to do next. And that creates an awkward situation for me because people are there and they're like getting ready to say goodbye and the animal's already telling me what it wants to come back as. And I'm like, hold your horses, kid. You're not dead yet, kind of thing. We'll talk about that more in an upcoming show, but your animal's going to die and you're wondering what they're going to do next, and you're wondering, are they going to reincarnate with you? I mean, obviously I didn't think about Alki coming back. I figured if he came back, he'd go to somewhere where he'd have lots of kids in a big, huge yard to run around, lots of kids to play with in a big yard to run around in. I didn't think he'd come back to be with me, but he was pretty adamant about that, and I'm just like thrilled and honored that he did that. But as they're dying, bless them on their journey, hold a funeral for them, do the happiness talk thing, and then check in with them after they've died. Find out what they're up to, what they're thinking of next. My closest soulmate, Murphy, died in 2012. She was my first Cavalier. And when she told me she wasn't coming back, we both cried. And it's hard. It's like losing them all over again to hear them say, no, that's not my sole purpose for my next experience. But gosh, just think how much you're growing and how much they're growing when you can say, hey, I understand, just check in and let me know how you're doing, and, good luck on whatever it is you're going to do next. It's quite the experience that we have with our animals. And I know that more and more people today are creating families with animals. And this union of souls, this union of supporting each other's soul purpose, I mean, that's what families do, first of all, right? So don't get caught up in that whole, oh, they're coming to save us and they're wise healers and they're gurus and well, for God's sake. That's a huge burden to place on anybody. So, move away from the people who tell you that they're here to heal us and to teach us and to do all these fancy things, because hello, they're in bodies just like we are. They're growing their souls just like we are. And it's really a burden on them to expect that they're going to grow our souls too and help us along our path. Now, we do that as families, obviously, but please don't do it for any other reason than we'll talk about that more on June 25th too. But are they going to come back? Who knows? It's like I said, this soul that I live with is crafty beyond measure, both those souls. And I'm just in awe of watching them develop and wondering, well, you could have put in, what are you doing and what are you up to, and that kind of thing. But here's the thing. They show up and they reincarnate in so many different ways. It was a complication finding Oliver. I sent him to a particular breeder. I had to convince the breeder what I was doing, and then I had to convince him to part with his show dog. And it all worked out just like my dad said it would, because I didn't believe him, because I'm tough to convince. But other people tell me that, they're walking down the sidewalk and going into the grocery store, and they look down and there's a litter of kittens, and there's their soul that they knew in their cat, that had died 6 months before, so they're popping up all over the place. Sometimes they're there for us. Sometimes they're waiting. It happens all the time. It really does. So here's what I'm going to end with for today for you before I tell you what we're up to next. Your animals are coming back? Yes, no, or maybe. Just be ready, right? Be smart. Think it through when they tell you they're coming back. Be fast. Be quick to act, just like I had to be with Oliver. Like, no, that's not my dog. That one is. Be love. Let love shine forth. Let it fill you up, because that spills over and fills them up too, and everybody else you come in contact with. And as my dad says, and he was right, believe, because somehow many of us do keep on finding each other. Our animals are looking for us. They are out there looking for us, just like we're looking for them. And they have the biggest handicap of all, and that's that we are human. So don't give up. If they tell you they're coming back, start looking for them. Try this magnetizing process, and then call us up and tell us, on upcoming shows what you've learned and how they came back to you, because life is a mystery and we're here having fun living it. So coming up in future shows, next week, June 11th, just happens to be my parents' wedding anniversary. So we're going to talk about what we're like alive and what we're like when we die and what our soul choices are next, because I've had those conversations with my parents, and it'll get you thinking about your loved ones who are human, what they might be up to in the afterlife. The week after that, Kim Valines of Earthlight Rocks and Gems will be talking to us about crystals. And the week after that, we'll be back to the subject of euthanasia and the dying process, what euthanasia is about, what you would or would not pursue that option for your dying animals, the happiness talk, just more on animals, the process of losing them, the process of them coming back, and how we grow our own souls by creating families with animals. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Again, if you have questions or if you'd like to work with me, you can find me at my website, robinfritz.com, ROBYNFRITZ.com. I do personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life and between life regression, spiritual awakening, and energy healing. And to close, hands on your heart, cross your hands on your heart, breathe in that positive, healthy energy. Then breathe into your palms, feel that air on your palms, and then cross your palms back on your heart. It grounds you back in to your body, closes down that crown chakra connection with Fallon. Thank you for joining us today. It's my privilege to be here with you, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.